Sami, and welcome to the show. We are really excited to have you with us. Um, why don't you tell us about yourself, your journey? What motivated you in terms of, why stand-up comedy, why writing? What motivates you every day, and what motivated you back then when you started?
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real honor to be on the show. That's a big. It's a lot. I think it's a lot of questions within one question. I'm going to try to do justice to it. Let me see. I started off in Pakistan, in Karachi. I was born there. I lived there until I was 35. But I kind of started doing all the weird things I do, which is writing and comedy and all of that in Karachi as well. Which would have been, I think, my first stand-up comedy show was 2005 maybe, and before that I was doing improv comedy with Blackfish, which I don't know if anyone even remembers anymore. We used to be an improv comedy troupe in the city of Karachi. I don't know, I think the reason I started this stuff is the same reason most people start becoming writers or comedians or anything, is you don't really have a choice. It's a compulsion. You don't feel happy if you're not doing it. I tried the traditional route. I went to university in America. I went there in 1998 to study computer science, the same way everyone goes to study. Back then in computer science was the big thing because the tech bubble was happening. We were all told you study computer science and you get a job in computers and stuff, and you're set for life. You'll have a good job, good income, and that does happen for most people who do that. I just wasn't happy though. I tried doing it and I wasn't happy, and I knew I was lying to myself when I did try going down that path, because the things that made me happy my whole life had been writing, had been performing, had been doing these things that in Pakistan we call hobbies. These are hobbies. You don't do this as your main thing. And so I kind of attempted to keep them as hobbies, but they just wouldn't stay that way. They kind of kept bubbling up to the surface. They kept putting themselves in the front of all the things that I wanted to do and saying, no, we want you to do us instead. And I realized very quickly that this is what makes me happy, and this is my path in life that I want to follow. After that, it was a long journey to convincing my parents to let me follow that. And I definitely took a long way to getting to where I am today. And along the way, I did a lot of other jobs and things and experiences that I am grateful for, but weren't necessarily things that made me professionally happy at the time. But I think my first, I did improv comedy on the side while in Karachi, while working in advertising for a while. I realized I didn't like working in advertising. I didn't enjoy working in the field, and so I left that and I tried to get something that I respected. Journalism was something I respected, so I became a journalist. I worked for the team that set up Dawn News back in the day, the TV channel. And that made me a lot happier because it was still closer to what I liked, writing and those things. And I still love being a journalist to this day. But I kept doing this comedy on the side. I was doing stand-up comedy by 2005. It was myself, I think Saad Haroon, Danish Ali, who are all performing still as well, I believe. And it was just this small group of people in Karachi just doing creative stuff. And I loved being part of that community. I got to express myself and indulge my habits and hobbies in a way that made me happy. The only thing that you have in Pakistan, we've got this big rule of if you can't earn money, why are you doing it? And you can only earn money doing the traditional jobs, which is why your parents worry, really. They just want you to be safe and want you to be taken care of, and the belief is that only by doing traditional jobs can you earn money. But I think we've kind of seen the economies have changed, the way the markets work have changed, the job structure have changed. It used to be you get one job, you stay in that job for 40 years. At the end of the 40 years, they give you a watch and they give you a big paycheck and you leave and you're retired now. But that doesn't happen anymore. No company keeps a person on for 40 years. You go from job to job to job. And in advertising, where I worked for a while, everyone changes after every 2-3 years. In journalism, everyone changes after every 2-3 years. And I realized after a while that if I'm going to keep jumping from job to job, industry to industry, why don't I also, I've got these things that keep changing, advertising to print journalism to TV journalism, all that. But the one thing I've consistently done forever basically is writing and comedy. So I was like, maybe it's time to start giving those the respect that they keep asking for as careers. And I've done that, and I've been very lucky. It hasn't. There's been hard times financially for sure, but it's been worth it, I think. And I'm speaking in past tense, but it's still an ongoing journey for sure.
No, thank you, Sami, and I think it's really great that you continue to pursue your passion. Just before I hand it over to Talat, one question. So, comedy, did it come naturally to you, or did you sort of learn it? Because I don't know how to get better at comedy. And then I'll hand it over to Talat.
Anything that comes naturally to anyone, you still have to learn. Like even the best writers, the best artists, and everything only get better with practice. So it's not. I can't think of anyone who does anything who just is naturally talented at it and never needs to practice it, never needs to rehearse it. So I always liked performing. I liked being funny. It's something I enjoyed doing. I like making people laugh. When I was a kid and I saw Moin Akhtar for the first time, I was very, very young, but there's something clicked in my head, and I was like, that's awesome what he's doing. And my heroes were Bushra Ansari, Anwar Maqsood, these people. And I wanted to learn what they did. So when I decided to do comedy, I spent hours, like weeks and months, just studying it. I listened to comedy, I studied comedy, I learned the way it was done, I learned the way it was written, what the structures were, what a setup is, what a punchline is, what a callback is, and how to perform it and how to change it. And I watched it all the time, and I still do to this day. The same thing with writing, it's not just about reading the books that I love reading. I try to figure out how they were written, the way they were written, what was happening with characters and plots and storylines, and I kept doing this for free. Like I'd perform comedy for free and just let people come and watch me, and their response would tell me if it's good or bad. I'd put my writing online for free, and eventually it got to the point where it's good enough that people were willing to pay me for it. So it definitely takes a while. It takes a lot of practice, and you're always improving. I'm lucky in that I'm not an athlete, so I don't have to worry about I hit 30 and I'm done. I'm better today as a comedian and a writer than I was last year, and hopefully I'll be better next year, even more so.
Talat, over to you.
Okay, so thank you, Sami. Thank you for sharing that. I think now we want to fast forward to when you were 35 and you moved to Australia, and you moved, I believe, to a little town. So today you're in Melbourne, but you were initially in the outskirts and a place probably most people have not heard of. Okay, and then you're pursuing this very alternative career in a strange country, which is not known to be very welcoming to immigrants, let's be honest. So you're this brown guy trying to make it with a Pakistani accent in a place where you've got to stand up in front of majorly a white audience, Australian audience. So tell us about that journey. What were the hurdles? How tough was it, or how easy was it to be accepted there? And how did that go?
So we left Pakistan, like you said, in 2012 we left, and the visa we got was a work visa that limited us to regional Western Australia. So we could live in Western Australia, but only in a small country town, not in Perth, which is the big city. So we ended up in a town called Northam, which is about 2 hours drive from Perth. And there wasn't work for me there. There just wasn't. I couldn't, there's one small newspaper in town. They had a journalist, and he was the only journalist who ever worked there, and they didn't need me. And there's not like advertising was a job there either. It's a very small, it's literally the Australian equivalent of a gaon in Lahore, in Punjab. It's very, very small, and it's a farming community. So I decided, I've got nothing else to do. I might as well start doing comedy, full time. I've been doing it in Pakistan for years and years and years, and I've never performed in a comedy club. I've never performed for audiences that aren't Pakistanis, and so I used to drive down. There's a comedy club in Perth. And I drove down a few times. I met the organizers the first time. I said, hey, I'm a comedian from Pakistan. I've been doing this for a few years. And they said, that means nothing to us. You have to show that you're funny. Comedy is a meritocracy. Comedy doesn't care where you're from, what your background is. If you're funny, you're funny. If you're not, you're not. And so they gave me a little bit of stage time, I think 7 minutes. And I would just be funny in those 7 minutes. And so I think for the first 6 months, 4 days a week, 5 days a week, I'd drive 2 hours down to Perth. in the evening, do 7 minutes of comedy, and then drive 2 hours back.